Very happy to be here in this beautiful province today and to talk to you about something that is very near and dear to my heart. Look at me. I know in academic circles and science that people do research and look for patterns of symptoms and patterns of behavior, and they name those things. And once they name them, they're able to discuss them and compare them and describe them. And that's kind of what happened with the Synergy movement in Alberta, that we saw a process that was working. It worked repeatedly, and we called it Synergy. Webster's dictionary defines it as a mutually advantageous conjunction or compatibility of distinct business participants. Stephen Covey, in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talks about it as 1 + 1 = 3, that the outcome of what we can achieve working together is always higher than what we can achieve working separately. So Synergy Alberta, what we'd like to add to that is its positive outcomes for all stakeholders resulting from meaningful engagement. And this might sound too good to be true. Depending on your experience with oil and gas development, things that you've heard in the media, you might believe that it's actually not possible. But I'm here today to tell you that it is, and to share with you the success that we have achieved with it in Alberta. So today I'm going to go over the origins of the Synergy movement in Alberta, the creation of Synergy Alberta, what the actual Synergy process is, who the stakeholders are that are involved with it, the business case for Synergy, because people, always want to know, well, what's in it for me? And then just profile some of the groups that are currently Synergy groups in Alberta. And then I'm going to end with a shameless plug for our conference that is held in October by showing you a little video. So it's kind of obvious and very interesting that oil and gas development exists at the subsurface, and the only access to the subsurface is through the surface. And so on the surface in Alberta, we have farmers and ranchers. In the Crown Land area, we have trappers, forestry, First Nations communities. And in the development you have here, you may have other kinds of surface users, but it isn't too much of a stretch to think that the competing interests of the people on the surface and the subsurface could cause conflict. And this picture in the middle here was, in my opinion, too familiar of a scene a few years ago in Alberta. So Synergy had its start in conflict, which is unfortunate, but I have a friend that talks about the only motivation people have is pain, or the avoidance of pain. And so it started with conflict. And it was the cumulative impacts of the growing industry and the growing population in Alberta. I grew up in Caroline, and Caroline is a little bitty village. In my lifetime, it has gone from 400 to 500 people. And I say I grew up in Caroline, but I was part of the rural population. The rural population around Caroline has increased kind of dramatically in my lifetime. There's a lot more acreage owners, rural subdivisions and that sort of thing in the area. It's a beautiful parkland area. When I was growing up there, it was the bush, and we're all looking how to get out. And now, amazingly, we all own prime real estate. So what happened is the oil and gas industry came, and I didn't live in a house with running water till I was 13, and neither did several of my peers. But the oil and gas industry came to town, and it dramatically changed the economy of the area, and went from an economy that was basically very based on agriculture and actually saved a lot of people's farms because of the revenue from that oil and gas development. And so for the first while, that's all good, right? That you've kind of gone from poverty to a better lifestyle. But eventually it gets to a place where, where they say where people are warm and well fed, they have other things to worry about, that concerns around safety and environmental stewardship and respect of the individuals became more and more important. And so different approaches were tried, kind of at the time where this population had grown quite a bit, was when the company I work for came to town to start a very large sour gas development. And sour gas is a highly toxic gas that is fatal at very, very low concentrations. So, people have high concern about that sort of development. And, so different approaches were tried. We did have a community advisory board that helped with the development. The advisory board was handpicked, and it was people that were all in favor of the project were chosen to be on the board. So, there were no opposing views, but, there was, kind of intel on the things that the community cared about and that kind of thing. So that did aid in the development. But there was, a lot of adversarial types of things going on too. There was groups like the Concerned Resident Action Group, the Preservation of Agriculture and Living Space Society, and my favorite, Citizens Against Shell. So it was very, very adversarial. The community had a very dark view of the industry, that they were greedy and had no one's concern but their own at heart. And the industry felt that the community were cave people, citizens against virtually everything, that there was no pleasing them. But there were a couple of hearings. One person was shot. Very, very adversarial type of situation. Families were divided, communities were divided, and the thing is that people just get tired of fighting. To fight all the time is emotionally draining on both the people that work in industry and the people in the community. So there has to be a better way. And I like to say we kind of did everything wrong first and kind of stumbled into, with the help of the regulator and the municipalities and community people that had a vision, and industry people who had the courage to, maybe not always think they had the absolute right answer. We were able to get together in the room and start looking at things in a collaborative, respectful way. And we kind of went out from there to other communities that were struggling with development and told them about what we were doing. And there became more and more groups in the province that were looking at this respective, collaborative way of working together. And in 2002, we actually had a conference. We called it Making Synergy Real. And it was like an idea whose time it came. And those things are always easy to move forward. And so with the regulator and industry and community, we organized this conference and kind of sent out the word in the province. And we had 250 people come to that conference, who wanted to make a process like this work. So over the next few years, we worked at defining what Synergy Alberta would look like. There was ideas, everything from, just a kind of a library of information to a advocacy group to a lobby group kind of thing. So we kind of defined the parameters of what Synergy Alberta would do and created a not-for-profit in 2006. And at that time, we had 12 working synergy groups in the province of Alberta. And we hired an excellent executive director that has really helped us move the whole process forward. So kind of what we do is we facilitate the growth of existing groups and encourage the development of new groups in new communities. If you don't have an oil and gas development in your community, chances are you haven't even heard of Synergy Alberta, because you know, it's just not on your radar screen. So when developments start in the community, we you know, try to encourage companies and communities that are feeling anxious to use this as an option. And that's what you get by having a name for something, is it becomes an option. You know, it isn't just you have to do what the company wants you to do. It isn't just that it's just what the regulator decides. It isn't just that we're going to have a hearing and maybe nobody's going to win. It's that you also have this option of sitting down and respectfully talking through the issues and coming up with the best way to proceed. So the Synergy groups are all multi-stakeholder, community-based groups that address the pressures and opportunity of energy resource development. And they're all unique to the communities and the developments that they include. So they're not structured the same. They don't have the same exact membership. It's kind of a fluid kind of a process to address the uniqueness of communities. We have a board of directors, and we have 4 community people on there, and try to have a broad spectrum of interest in those people. Currently, we have 3 farmers and a ski hill operator. So, you know, kind of a broad perspective. We have 3 industry people. 1 is appointed, that's from the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, and 2 elected. I'm one of the elected. And 3 appointed government members, 1 from the regulator, 1 from the Department of Energy, and 1 from the Department of Agriculture, who is in Alberta the Farmers Advocate. So the vision that we created for Synergy Alberta was synergy as a catalyst to achieve a principled, balanced, and sustained approach to resource management. Working together, we can achieve more. And so we didn't define, like I said, the structure of anything. It's the process that synergy is the process that we encourage. And the resource that we currently are focused on, of course, is oil and gas development. There is a lot of pressure for us to expand into forestry and aggregate development and that sort of thing. But and we do kind of encourage and help that. But our main focus still remains oil and gas because it is a very large resource in our province. And it takes an awful lot of effort, and it is forever changing. Sour gas development was kind of the big thing, and took a lot of effort. And you know, now heavy oil and hydraulic fracturing, coal bed methane, those are all kind of new over the last few years. So you know, there continues to be new communities and new areas and new types of development that we need to work on. So we're still focusing on oil and gas. Our mission is fostering and supporting mutually satisfactory outcomes in Alberta communities by providing information, mutual learning, communication, skill development, facilitation, and resources. So information is really important. The Alberta government did a survey a few years ago, and for a province with as much energy development as we have, the actual energy literacy of the population is fairly low. That most of the information they get from the media, and that of course isn't meant to be accurate. You know, it's meant to be interesting, and so it isn't always helpful information, and it isn't always information that keeps us all on a level playing field so that we can have those discussions about things. So we try to be kind of a depot for information, and are working on initiatives with the provincial government around energy literacy, both in schools and like on our website. So lots of work to do in that area. Mutual learning for oil and gas companies to understand their impact on rural communities. There's a lot of information that they may not have, you know, currently available. One of the initiatives we did was with the Canadian Society of Unconventional Gas, developed a thing we call the farm game that there are different kinds of farming and ranches and whatnot, and there are very specific times of the year that there are things that are going on that are very important for the economic viability of those. And so if you're planning your oil and gas development, and you want to do something in the middle of someone's calving area, you're going to have a conflict. So trying to provide information about things so that they can see things more from the rural landowner's perspective. Communication, that's probably maybe one of the most important things I think Synergy Alberta brings, is the opportunity for synergy groups to network, that you can talk to like-minded people and find out what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them. We have monthly networking teleconferences with all the synergy groups. We have a website that we try to keep current information on, and kind of our flagship event is we have an annual conference in October to bring together all the synergy groups and to have all sorts of information on different topics that they'd be interested in. Skill development, to have interest-based conversations rather than position-based conversations. It takes a certain level of skill, and so we try to provide some skill development for our synergy groups, some communication training on listening, some training on different processes that you can use depending on what it is the outcome you're looking for. And facilitation is crucially important, and we have a roster of facilitators that are familiar with synergy processes that can help our synergy groups and new synergy groups. And then we have the resources of our staff to help as well. So where is Synergy Alberta today? So we have 30 synergy groups currently as synergy group members, and as you can see by the map, it kind of covers the area of Alberta that the highest amount of development has been over the last few years. And as I said, these groups each have varied issues, they have varied structures, they have varied membership, and they have varied level of capacity. In fact, there's quite a range of capacity in our synergy groups. And I'm going to review some of these later, but just one I'll just point out right now is the Panther Advisory Group. And in my mind, that group, for me personally, kind of epitomizes what the whole synergy process is about. That's a synergy group that exists in an area of Crown land called the Panther Corners, and it's the Panther River, and it comes out of the Banff National Park. And it's a very pristine, incredibly beautiful part of the province. And Suncor Energy and Shell Canada were doing a sour gas development in that region. And so we have the synergy group that consists of the other users of the area. And so we have a trapper, and we have a commercial trail rider, and we have hunters, and we have campers, and we have horseback riding people. And for me, it really kind of epitomizes it, because the other synergy groups that I'm part of, it's rural landowners, and I'm a rural landowner, and I have a farm, and I understand the importance of calving and all sorts of things. So for me personally, it just depicts it better to me when I'm never going to be a trapper, I'm never going to be a commercial outfitter, I'm never going to be a commercial rafter. And so for me, it just, it's really so great having all of these diverse interests at the table and listening to how what we do impacts each of them. And I recall a conversation about the timing of a particular well we were going to drill. And, if you were just talking to the trapper would tell you to do it in the summer because he does his thing in the winter. And if you were talking to the commercial rafter, he'd tell you to do it in the winter because he does his thing in the summer. But if you have everyone at the table, then the trapper can say, well, I do my thing in the winter, and the rafter can say, well, I do my thing in the summer, and then we can all say, well, so what exactly is going to be the impact of this particular well? Okay, well, we're going to do this and that. Okay, so what kind of impact would that have on the trapper? Can we mitigate that? Can we, control that? What kind of impact would that have on the rafter? What can we do to mitigate and control that? And together we can come up with an idea that works for everyone. Whereas those one-off conversations, there would be somebody left out of the conversation, and the decision would probably hurt them. We also have just recently a new out of province synergy group that exists in Ground Birch, British Columbia. It's a community that's dealing with a very large development of shells regarding hydraulic fracturing, and so they've recently become a member. We've had certainly have had interest from Nova Scotia, attended our conference last year, some folks from Nova Scotia, from Pennsylvania. The idea is spreading. So our synergy groups also link up with other groups. Mutual aid groups. Mutual aid is emergency response. Sour gas development emergency response is a key part of that. And so we have mutual aid groups that include all other companies, include the municipality, include the province, include other emergency responders such as the police. Stewardship groups such as land care or riparian groups. Environmental non-government organizations such as the Pembina Institute. Airshed groups. In the province of Alberta, we have the Clean Air Strategic Alliance, and we have a network of airshed zones that the air is monitored in. In the area where I live, it's the Parkland Airshed Management Zone. We have watershed groups. Again, each of the rivers in Alberta have a watershed group. In the area I live in, it's the Red Deer River Watershed Alliance. And each of these groups use a process that you would call a synergy process, where they have all stakeholders at the table. We work with other industry associations, the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, the Petroleum Service Association of Canada actually is just doing a best practices for hydraulic fracturing workshop with Synergy Alberta next week. So we work with all the industry associations, and there's many of them. We work with the economic development groups. The one in my area is the Central Alberta Economic Partnership. We work with regional municipal initiatives, and often these initiatives are around emergency response or water use. We work with land trusts, with educational institutions. Olds College is in the area I live in, and we've done several programs with them. They have a land agent program, and we've done lots of work with their land agents. And other NGOs, one group that comes to mind is the Friends of the Eastern Slopes, which is a group that deals with responsible horse use in the Crown Land area in Central Alberta. So the strategic plan for Synergy Alberta for this year is to increase the effectiveness and capacity of synergy groups. And the capacity is around some of those things I talked around skill building, but also around things like governance and facilitation. The governance piece has been really important because, like I said, most of these synergy groups kind of start out of a crisis, and so you kind of get in there right away with the process for resolving that, and they kind of get that sorted out, and it's important that these groups stay sustainable, that they're just not one issue, one project kind of groups, that you get them set up so that they can be proactive in the future to coming development, and so you often have people that are passionate about whatever the development is or the organization, but the governance part is trickier for the synergy groups, so really working on that. Ensuring synergy tools, resources, and events, including the conference, are defined and useful and accessed by people. Increase the awareness of synergy. So I thank you for the opportunity today to speak here, and increasing the capacity of Synergy Alberta to support the Synergy network. So something that is bandied about a bunch in Alberta these days is the social license to operate, and how how Synergy fits into that is that how I like to put it is that regulators grant permits, but communities grant permission, and it's that permission that that we're looking for, and so it's based on reputation and trust that comes from relationship building, and that's kind of the natural outcome of respectful collaboration. I know we have one Synergy group in the south of the province that they had gone through several hearings, very adversarial, and set up a Synergy group there, and they start working away at the issues, and one of the community people said to the vice president of one of the companies, like, okay, I see the problem here. I'm starting to like you. And once you have trust, like everything is possible. Synergy is not it's not an open house or a town hall meeting, and those are some tools in your toolbox, but it's not a one-shot thing. It's not like, let's get these people in this room and magically fix this. That it's a sustained thing, that building relationships takes time, and the only way you can build a relationship is face time with people, and there's no shortcut to that. Synergy groups strive for social acceptance by ensuring information needs are met for all people. We fear what we don't know, so making sure people are, have information that just isn't the media information. Community members feel heard, respected, and appreciated, and it's very important to address the uniqueness of the community. And that's why our Synergy groups are all different, that you can't say, okay, this exact structure, this exact whatever works, let's just do it over here, or we fix this over here, so why don't you people just listen because we're going to do it this way. That, that it has to address the uniqueness of the community, but it is also in going through that process that you build that relationship and you build that trust. So there are no shortcuts, that you have to do it every time. That issues are addressed and mitigated or resolved, and that takes a lot of sincerity and courage on behalf of the companies. That once you really get into it, you might change your mind. That you might hear something from the community, you might look at options and things that you didn't even consider before. And so if you're kind of hung up on being right, or kind of feel like a victim in the process, you're not going to get anywhere. You need to be very sincere. And I think it's important to say that the attitude is that we're all in this together, that we're solving whatever this development dilemma is, that it's for all of our good. We have in the one Synergy group that I'm in, we have an event annually we call Neighbors Day, because the industry is neighbors in the community, that we're there for the long haul. So what is this magic process? I think I'm over my time now. So like I said, it often starts in crisis. My dream is that we get to a place where it is more proactive, and actually after you get a group set up and going, you can be proactive, and actually in Central Alberta we use this process for all of our development now, and it works very well. Participants can be any stakeholder willing to work with other stakeholders. And that's the important thing about being a volunteer and not a victim in the process, not feeling like you have to be there. The willing to work with other stakeholders, you don't even have to be really willing. You just have to be kind of willing. That will come. But if you have a very negative view to the, and especially the industry participants, if you have a very negative view to it, you're not going to get very far. But you really bring the people to the middle, that the extreme views, that you get them all the views on the table, and you bring everyone kind of to the middle. And the people that can't handle that just vote themselves off the island. Like they quit participating because it just doesn't work for them. But it's really important to have as many views, as many opposing views as possible in the room. That's how you get the best decisions. Not handpicking the people that already agree with you, because then you'll never get to anything else. Facilitators are really important. You need someone to run the process. You need someone to be a watchdog on the ground rules. The respectful dialogue is so important. And it doesn't mean it's a big love-in or anything. Like, there's some very tough discussions, but just that everybody gets heard. Being clear on expectation and having all, like I said, all points of view in the room. You need to focus on the relationship building, the communication. You need to, what I like to say is, you need to give people a good listening to. Don't jump to being defensive. That sometimes people have misinformation, or they've heard stuff in the media or whatever that have got them kind of overly concerned, and if you say, well, it's just whatever, they can't hear you. You just sound defensive. You need to listen, you need to prioritize, you need to put out the information. Lots of times what I've seen happen is, once you have a respectful situation and you have the regulator say, okay, this is the minimum standard, people are like, oh, okay, well, that actually does address my concern. But they couldn't have even heard that before you sat down respectfully to talk about it. And the community needs to share with the industry why they're concerned about those things, because what you need to do is move from their position to their interest. And like in the sour gas business, if somebody says to me, I want a sour gas monitor in my house, well, I could say to them, no, you don't. Or I'm not going to give you one, or I don't think you need one because of these reasons. But if instead I say to them, why do you think you need a sour gas monitor in your house? And they say, because the sour gas could come in while I'm sleeping, it could kill all my family, all of these kinds of things. And I say to them, so safety, it's your safety that you're really concerned about. Yes, I'm really concerned about my safety. Well, you know what? Safety is really important to me too, so let's talk about safety. And we can talk all day about safety. And we can get to solutions that we didn't even think was possible. But if we just argue about the sour gas monitor, we're never going to get anywhere. We need to seriously tackle the issues. And the ways that I've seen this done is synergy groups creating best management practices for all industry to follow. Like, if you do these things, if this is the way you do hydraulic fracturing, if this is the way you do whatever, then my community can live with it. And I've also seen companies on individual projects create what we call performance measures, where they say, for this development we will do this thing, and we will come back and we will audit against it and see how it worked. And the community can give us feedback on how they think it went. And again, that takes a lot of courage, and but it works amazingly. Build on ongoing processes, and that's again to the part about being sustainable. And often that's what the synergy groups have found is that there are kind of underlying information needs in their community, or underlying, I don't know who to talk to if somebody leaves my gate open, or those kinds of things. And so they become kind of ongoing information processes in their communities. So the International Association of Public Participation has a continuum for public participation from inform to empower. And the synergy groups, I don't think any of us get all the way to letting the community make the final decision, but definitely to the place of collaboration. Some of them kind of start out at inform, and some of them kind of stay at inform. And again, it depends on the courage of the industry that's at the table. One group we have, the West Central Stakeholders Group, they started, the only thing they did, and they still do it, and they've done it for 10 years, is twice a year have an information session in the community where they had like all sides of whatever, emergency response, flaring, water use, whatever, a panel discussion on that. And, they get a couple hundred people from the public come out, and that really fills a need in that community. But then, from the feedback that they've got from that, they've gotten closer to involve and collaborate by creating best management practices and that sort of thing. So Synergy groups are multi-stakeholder. They all have community industry working together. Often they have the regulator, and often they have the municipality at the table too. They provide a safe, respectful environment. Though, like I said, there's hard discussion. It's not a love-in. And when I talk about respect, it's kind of anything that people can see, hear, or smell are the things that impact them, and so they should know about them, and they should have some input into them. And also knowing what their situation is and taking that into consideration. How our development is going to impact what they're doing. And timing things like around Christmas and calving and summer vacations and stuff, like it's kind of basic how we all want to be treated kind of things. Alrighty, so the stakeholders that we have at the table are the rural landowners who used to be farmers and ranchers, who still are farmers and ranchers, but the ranches and farms are, in central Alberta getting much smaller. There's getting to be fewer of them, and there's getting to be lots of rural acreage owners. And a retired acreage owner has a different whole interest or not interest in oil and gas development than a rancher who, may get some economic benefit from having that on his property. Oil and gas, of course, has to be at the table, and the regulator. And and you invite in other community folks, other resource development, other regulators, the province, and again, it's always fit for purpose for whatever that group is, but it really is like whoever has an interest in that development, and it can be a very, very broad spectrum of people. It should be a very, very broad spectrum of people. So the business case, what's in it for me, for each of us, is for community, it's the opportunity to learn about energy development. We fear what we don't know, the opportunity to provide advice and suggestion to get our uniqueness out there. Facilitates proactive community development that recently, like the sour gas development that I became a part of when I started working for Shell, is now a lot of the conventional drilling is done. Our gas plant is, we shut down half our gas plant last year. So like that has a big economic impact on our area, and so that's definitely been a part of the discussion in our Synergy group. Builds constructive and lasting relationships with economic interests rather than creating adversaries. No one actually wants the industry to go away. That we all enjoy the economic benefit of the industry, but they do want minimal negative impact. Builds trust, understanding, honesty, respect, and actually in the Synergy groups I know, we actually have fun, and we affect change. The community people, like you don't create what you create in the Synergy group to change regulation, but I've definitely seen regulations around flaring, air quality, and noise all changed because of input and suggestions from Synergy groups, and so communities can be part of that. What's in it for industry? The bottom line, shareholders, that's all important stuff. So what's in it for them? The number one thing in my mind is it builds better projects, and those better projects have community buy-in. When you get them designed, you have their buy-in because you've been working with them through the process, and that avoids costly hearings and long approval processes. And I can just think of two very clear examples in my mind, in Central Alberta where I work, where we have the Synergy process, we drilled a sour gas well a few years ago, 42% sour. The village of Caroline was within the emergency planning zone of it. So we had 660 households within the emergency planning zone, which means we had to get non-objection from each of those households that we could proceed with this 42% sour gas well. 42% sour gas could kill you a gazillion times over. We got 0 objections, not one, and that application went in routine. We had another well that was, I think it was 32%, 36%, and it was in an area where we didn't have a Synergy group, and the well was called Farrier, and we struggled and struggled and struggled with the community for a year and a half. Then we had a hearing. Then David Suzuki came out and did, you can Google it, worst case scenario. He did a national film board thing on Farrier, and when you've had a licking by David Suzuki, you know you've had a licking. And you know, we lost the hearing, cost us millions of dollars. You know, and they weren't many miles apart, but one we had a Synergy process and one we didn't. Something I would add to this is the quality of life for the employees of the company. Like, nobody likes fighting, but like what I like to say to people is, in Caroline we have a little store. It's called the Pioneer General Store, and what I say to people is it only has 4 aisles. And like, if I'm in the Pioneer General Store, you know, getting my groceries like this and trying not to make eye contact with anyone because they're feeling really upset by something my company's doing, like, that's no kind of quality of life for me or any of the other employees. And so, you know, being good neighbors, being on good terms with people, I think makes it better for your employees too. And the business case for the regulator is, you know, it gives them more respect. It makes opportunities for them to actually talk about what the regulations are in a way that people can understand them. And you know, and the regulator has a tough job. You know, they say if everybody's mad at them, they're doing it right. But you know, they have to make a regulation that fits across the province in all, you know, communities and all situations and all developments. And you know, so what they have is basically the minimum standard. And you know, and that isn't enough. That often what I say is that what the Synergy process does is meets that distance between regulation and expectation, and that's the space we live in. But having the regulator be able to explain in their own words the minimum standards helps everyone. So a couple of Synergy group profiles. Morgan tells me I'm out of time. So in the Sundre area, we have a group called the Sundre Petroleum Operators Group. And like I said, we had a shooting. A vice president of a company was shot, had 4 little kids. Like, that's no good. We had the Shell development ongoing in 1992. Nova had a very large pipeline explosion of a sweet gas transmission line, and it was like spectacular. And nobody knew what to do, and we lived 14 miles away from it, and our bedroom is on the other side of the house, and you could read a newspaper in our bedroom. The fire was so big. And I turned on the radio, and it said, a mushroom-shaped cloud over the Shell Caroline gas plant. And I thought, okay, we're building it. There's no gas there. What could have exploded? So like, the information in the media was wrong. People didn't know what to do. It was just utter chaos. And because the community was so worried about the sour gas development, they said, is there any kind of way that we could work together so that when there's a problem that we can know what to do? So out of that grew the Sundre Petroleum Operators Group and community participation in that. And so we, it works like it's like magic. It just works so well that the community and the industry, like, we work so well together in the Sundre area. And like I say, we have new things come up, but you know, we can proactively look at them. in the Lakeland area, there's a group called Lakeland Industry Community Association, LICA, and so they're one of the people we went and talked to in the late 90s, and they formed their group. And what's different about their group is they have their airshed and their watershed as part of their group too. So you know, they have it's quite a feat in management, I think, managing all of that, but they do a fine job. In the Ponoka area, we have the Calumet Synergy Group, and one thing they've really concentrated on is creating best management practices for all sorts of things, doing things like taking surface lease agreements and writing them in layman's terms so that people can actually understand what they're signing.